The Art of Yes. Interview with Felipe Ortiz.
That was a hard, long way. Oh.
Finally.
Hello, Felipe. Oh.
How are you?
How are you?
Good. Tired, but now I found you.
Yeah. Oh, good to see you. Welcome in Warsaw.
Wow, I haven't been here before.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Oh, that's my flat. Oh. Yeah.
Going to look for a chair.
I bring you one.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Here you are.
Thanks.
Wow.
Woo.
Oh.
Nice that you have a white wall there and a black here.
Yeah, I like contrast.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Thank you for visiting me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, Felipe Ortiz is my guest today. What a wonderful meeting. Hello. Hi, Felipe. As you probably guess, I would like to talk about improv, but not only improv is your life. So let's start from the beginning. You are from Colombia. So tell me, where are you from, which city you live, and how did you start your arts? Because you do a lot of different stuff. And what was the beginning of
Everything.
everything?
I was born in Bogota.
Mm-hmm.
in Colombia, and I grew up here. And I was, since I was a kid, like very connected to the body and the different possibilities of the body. Like I was doing a lot of different kinds of sports. Uh, like I was, when I was like 12 till 15, no, less, like from 7 till 16, I was playing racquetball,
Mm-hmm.
like professional. I was national champion like 2 times and stuff like that. And in the school, I was part of the volleyball team and the basketball team, but I also joined all the houses competitions. My school was divided in houses.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a theater competition or dance competition or music competition, and I will just join every type of activity that I could. I did some martial arts as well when I was a kid, and I was also like very connected to drawing because my sister was studying like oil painting and stuff. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to learn, but I never got into it. It was just like hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then I got out of the school and I had to go to the army for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And these things of life that sometimes you don't know why they happen, but then everything makes sense. So I had to be there, but I was part of a special group that was in charge of doing shows.
Wow.
So military shows, but well, not shows, but how do you say it? Like, for example, when some officers from different parts of the world will come to Colombia to do some training here,
Mm-hmm.
we will do the welcome, like jumping from a helicopter with ropes, and there was like a tower, and we will go down doing rappel and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
shooting like fake bullets and throwing air smoke grenades with colors, and like a show. So I did that the whole year that I had to be there, so jumping from buildings with ropes and stuff like that. And then I went to the university to study design,
Mm-hmm.
industrial design. But my girlfriend at that time was part of the theater group of the university, and she said, like, you should join it. It's wonderful. It's a lot of physical stuff. You will love it. And I was, yeah, why not? For fun. But I was really into the design thing. So I entered that group, and this director was trained with Grotowski.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very strong training with the body, and I loved it because it involved acrobatics and stuff like that. And there I met a friend, and we were really like connected since the beginning. And we started playing with some exercises that the director will use for building our shows.
Mm-hmm.
And those exercises were connected to improv. So we started playing with those games like crazy, but we didn't know that improv was a thing because in Colombia there was no improv at that time. So we played, and one day we asked him like, "Hey, we have an idea. Can you imagine a show that it's completely improvised, and you just go there and you make up things and stuff?" And then he said, the next rehearsal, he said in front of the class, "Okay, these guys have something to show you." And we were like, "What?" no, no, no. And then he said, do it, do it. Don't tell me, just do it. So we were there doing crazy stuff like for 40 minutes. And the rest of the group was like, wow, when did you started doing that? What is that?
Mm-hmm.
And we said, we don't know. We're just playing and doing crazy stuff. And then the director said, like, you should put a show together and try it in a special place in the university for storytellers and musicians and stuff. So we did, and we were doing that show and people loved it. And like 6 months after that or something like that, he came one day with some copies. Maybe you're interested in this. And he gave us Impro, Kit Johnson's book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we were reading that and we couldn't believe it. We were feeling like this guy stole our ideas. Like, how? Only like 20 years ago, but he did. And then we were reading it, and it was amazing to be able to read some stuff that we were already doing, and also reading a lot of stuff that we were doing, but we didn't have words for that still,
Mm-hmm.
And everything was really clear there, and we were like, what is this? And then we realized that improv was a thing that existed and that there were formats and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's how improv started. But at the same time, one time I went to the beach here in Colombia and I met a Spanish juggler doing fire, and I was completely mind blown with that. Like, wow, I want to learn. So I went to the guy the next 2 days because we were staying in the same beach, and he taught me the basics. And he told me that there was a very good book for juggling.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked my sister that was traveling at that time, like, can you please bring me some balls, some clubs, some contact juggling ball, and this book? And she did, because in that time there was not a lot of circus here as well,
Mm-hmm.
of contemporary circus. So I started with juggling, and then because of the theater, I started doing some clowning workshops, and then there was gymnastics and capoeira at the university, so I joined those classes and I started doing a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in one point, 4 years I was there, and in one point I was like, I need to choose something. I need to focus, because I started doing contemporary dance as well and tons of things. And then I saw a Cirque du Soleil show in a video, and I was like, no, I don't have to decide anything. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing a mix of theater and clown and everything.
Yeah.
But the only thing that didn't fit there was design. So I quit the university and just jump into impro and circus.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So it was like a beginning in Bogota that there was like no real improv before, right? It looks like you almost created the beginning of improvisation in Colombia or in Bogota, let's say.
Yes, some time after we discovered that there was in theater universities they were doing the match,
Mm-hmm.
not the theater sports, but the match, the Canadian format,
Yeah.
more into hockey and stuff, very competitive. And we met some people that were doing that. We met an improv teacher from one of the universities, and we started developing projects and doing stuff. But we were the first professional company in Colombia.
Wow. Cool. So, yeah, it seems like you are a very artistic person from the very, very beginning. But That's cool. So tell me, how then did you improve? How did you find the teachers and like learned new skills and yeah, developed your skills in improvisation, but also in theater and circus?
The thing was that because we didn't have anyone here, we started with my partner at that time. We were thinking like, what should we do? And it was a lot of intuition in there, like we both loved physical comedy, for example, like Buster Keaton and Chaplin and stuff like that. And we were like, we need to learn clowning.
Mm-hmm.
So we started looking, and once we find a French guy that came here and was teaching a clown workshop in a theater festival.
Mm-hmm.
So we joined that workshop, and we both were like, wow, this is amazing. Now we need some stage fighting, because we were both very into that. So we found stage fighting classes.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a lot of that with swords, with sticks, with just punches and kicks and stuff. And that was really amazing. That developed in one of our first formats, which was an action movie format with a lot of fighting. We will fight for everything. But we didn't have a lot of technique, like it was very what we were discovering. So we thought like we need a lot of bodies, so we started doing these acrobatic things, stage fighting, then clowning, and we started improvising from the clown perspective, because that's what we knew, And then an Argentinian group came that was like 4 years after we were doing improv.
Mm-hmm.
They came to Colombia for a theater festival, and that was the first time we saw an improv group after like 4 years of being doing this, or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, wow. It was like a very cool group. Actually, Omar was part of that group.
Oh my God.
That was 1999 or 2000,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So we met there, and we were like, wow, these people do what we do, the first. And they also saw us, and they were like, oh, that's nice what you're doing. You have a special taste that I don't know what it is. And it was just like a short encounter in that festival.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got an invitation to go to Amsterdam, to the festival there. That was 2001, long time ago.
Yeah.
And once we got there and we started doing our thing, people were like, what? I really remember people coming to us and asking us like, where did you learn this? Who did you learn this from? What is this that you do? And they loved it because it was very physical, it was very spontaneous, very honest. It had all the clown spirit, it had all the physical comedy spirit. And on top of that, we came from Colombia. Our English was not the best, so that gave like a special charm to it.
Mm-hmm.
In that point, we didn't know what was it, like what they were saying, like, where did you learn? How do you do this? And we're like, what? I don't know what you're saying, Through the years, we understood that we had like a special way of doing improv, a very unique, because it came from us. We discovered it, and we didn't learn it from anyone. So it had a very special taste, and yeah, and from that, in that festival, we met some people, we took some workshops, and that was like a snowball. Like in that festival in Amsterdam, we met the people from Norway and Belgium, from the Under Theater in Norway and in Spinaci in Belgium. And then the next year, the Inspinazi people invited us. So we went there and we met some German people. And then the next year we went to Norway, and it became like a snowball. And I guess since 2003, more or less, I've been touring around the world every year. Learning and taking workshops and teaching and performing and everywhere. So that's how I started getting a lot of information from the technique, from Johnston, from Del Close, from different approaches in the world. So yeah, that's more or less.
So who found you in Amsterdam? Because it sounds like you were invited, but somebody had to introduce you to the festival in Amsterdam. Who was it?
It was in that time the teacher from the university that I told you. He went to Italy to do some commedia dell'arte or something like that. He worked in a university there or something, and we kept in touch, and he knew about that festival. So he said, like, we can make a Latin group. And they said, yes, perfect. So it was Omar, Beto and me, my partner in that time, and me, and the teacher. So we went there, and the only thing is that only Beto and me were speaking in English. So in the mix shows, it was very difficult for the other ones in that time, but somehow, of course, my partner and me were a group in that time, so they knew us as a group, and they started inviting us as a group after that.
That's a great story that you told this story. Yes. So tell me, because as you said, your improv, what you do with your troupe and with your partners, for me, and I think for most of people who saw it, it's special. It's really different, and it's really physical. So tell me what clowning and this, this approach of circus. I will go to circus still later, but how this enriched your improv? What clowning and all this physical stuff gave you as an improviser?
Well, at the beginning, I had no idea. It was, as I told you, like just an intuition. Like we said, like, okay, we love fighting. Let's train more of that. It would be cool if we can do some jumps. So acrobatics became like a very important tool there. And then we tried to do some fights, but then we said, like, let's put it into a very high level. Let's learn this. Let's learn the technique to make proper fights. And then all the clowning thing. Then I went to London to study clown with Philippe Gaulier, because I really wanted to dive into clowning, and I think that's the thing that I respect the most of the performing arts, and I love it. And in that time, the clowning gave us this honest spirit of sharing and failing, because we didn't know, we faced a lot of troubles when we first started traveling, starting with the language. So we were suddenly improvising with people from Canada, from the States, that was their mother tongue. And if you know, you have experienced that nowadays they are more aware, but still is very difficult sometimes because they just go very fast. And sometimes you get lost. So now imagine back there 2001, 2003, where they were not that aware, if you know what I mean.
I know.
Yeah. So we were facing a lot of troubles and a lot of difficulties, and the only way that we could deal with that was being honest, enjoying being, I don't know where I am.
Yeah, being lost.
Accepting that and just throwing the ball back in that honesty and humble point of, did you say this or that? Right?
Yeah.
Or stopping things in the middle, like, wait, I just need to clarify, am I your father or your son? I'm just, like, just dealing with that.
Yeah.
Very honest, very open and playful. So that will really shock improvisers sometimes and make them really improvise. So I started, like, through the years, realizing how wonderful is that, because impro is a lot getting out of your comfort zone. And once you know something, try to move further. Try to keep that state of not knowing, and that's the best state for improv. So back then I didn't know that, I was not aware of that, but I was doing that already, like pushing people, taking the floor away, and just there. So I think that spirit was very clear. It came from clowning, like being honest, being present, share your feelings, your emotions, be open with the audience, be open with your partners, and accept that we are improvising and that mistakes are going to be there. So enjoy them and play with them and have fun with them. So yes, and the physical part, also because with my partner at the time, with Beto, we loved physical comedy. But once you started doing improv, you don't have the props, or it was very complicated to be able to get a chair, a table, a door, a window, like stuff to interact with. So the only chance we had was interacting with imaginary objects and spaces. So we developed that as well. Like, we didn't go to a miming school or anything in the beginning, like the first 4 years or something. We developed that ourselves, and that brought also that uniqueness in the technique of miming. Because after that, Beto went to study in London some miming and physical theater, and then I took some miming workshops here and there. But I realized, like, what we need for improv is not the clean miming technique. We need to be able to interact with objects and spaces and make that clear for your partners and the audience. So that's another world, It's like you have ballet and very clear rules of dancing, like classic dancing. And then you have contemporary dancing and experimental dancing, and then movement. right? So if you compare that, like miming is something very classic, very specific, and then you can break it down and use some of the techniques for what we need in improv.
Yeah, I agree, and I had a workshop with you about it, so it was cool and very useful. Tell me then, because clowning is also, I find it interesting that we as improvisers, we do a comedy, but we also are very often told to not to trying to be funny. And this is a contradiction which is really difficult for people to understand, how to make a comedy, which is something which is quite specific. It has its own techniques. So what clowning gave you in case of comedy? What kind of tools?
I will say, I will start with a quote that I don't remember from who, sorry, but it's like there's nothing more serious than comedy. So the best comedy comes from situations, not from people being funny. So if you try to be funny, maybe some people will find it funny, but some people will notice that you're trying to be funny and they would not like it. But when you are in trouble, when you are in a complicated situation, when people can see the human being dealing with stuff, that is funny. And that's the type of comedy that I like. And that's the comedy that I like to watch. That's the comedy that I like to do or to discover, to find, to come across with, because it's not something that I think you need to prepare yourself, train yourself to be able to face and find comedy as you do what you do, not to be funny. If that makes sense.
It makes.
But yeah, I think one thing is the technique, right? So you learn a technique about status, and you know that a big drop of status causes a comic effect, right? So that's technique. You know that if you try to speak in alphabetic order, that will put you into trouble, and that can be funny. So there's a difference. Like you have a technique, you have a technique that is, okay, I know if you come with a very high status and I lower my status from the outside, that's funny. It's not that I'm funny, it's the situation itself, right?
Yeah.
That's technique.
Yeah.
The other thing is the self, how can I say this in English? The being, the human being, willing to be open and share its emotions, its feelings, and everything. So that's why I was saying you should train yourself in the technical part, but you also have to train yourself as a human to be able to let that mix together. Right? So you have to train your ego, so you don't want to shine all the time, and you're willing to work for the others and all that stuff that we sometimes learn, but it's very difficult to really get it inside and live from it. So in clowning, you have a lot of techniques as well, like you have techniques like the double take, slapstick, you know, like being clumsy. I try to sit here and I fall, boom, that can be funny. It depends how you do it. If you are able to mix the technique with the honesty and do the technique perfectly so it really looks like you felt like a mistake, and not that you're trying to be funny falling from a chair.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. And the other thing is, in the human being part, is like willing to just discover every second what is happening in every new time you do it. Because the clown will build a partiture, a choreography, and you have to be open and present. So every time you do it, even if it's the same, it's different. Because every situation is different. You have different audience, different theaters, different light, different mood.
Yeah.
And if you're able to connect that, then you can use technique and the being present. And I think for impro, that is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Mm.
What made you the biggest challenge in improv? What was the biggest challenge in improvisation for you to learn?
I think there's always a lot of challenges. In one point of my life, I was wanting more, and I was watching these amazing groups that were doing like very strong storytelling. And you could see like these amazing English groups doing Shakespeare style, and then you were like, wow, how are they able to tell a story in the style of Shakespeare that sharp? You know? Or some groups from like in the States, some groups that you see a genre and they treat the genre so serious and so sharp that you think, wow, this doesn't look improvised. You know, like this is so good that it looks like set. Which for me at the beginning had like a special like, if it looks set, why don't you set it? And because we are missing the improvised life and the mistake and all these things. But then I started struggling with that and like, I want to do that. I think if you're an improviser, you have to be able to do all types of improv. Why not? So you can do like a very strong genre, be serious, be dramatic, be trustful as a character. So all the acting thing became also like a challenge. So I started doing some acting classes and learning some more tools to be able to bring to improv. And yeah, all those, I think those were the biggest challenges.
So what was your one, or maybe you have more to share, epiphany, which is like, you know, you saw something or somebody gave you a note or you discovered something which helped you to be better improviser, or to just to learn something really new, some discovery which was like, you know, wow.
Let's say like a lot of at the beginning it was happening a lot that you came out and you were going to do something on stage and suddenly people were laughing, and then this thing of why are they laughing, you know, like what is it? And taking the time to breathe and show the audience that you are feeling a little bit uncomfortable because you don't know why they are laughing, and being able to share that was like something that happened a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And that through the years it brings this wonderful image of impro, that it has to be something that is connected to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the unique part of it, that every show is different because it's different audience, different room, different light, people, musician, different you. And if you are able to connect with everything in that moment, that brings a special shine to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was something that at the beginning was like, why are they laughing? But I didn't panic because of that. You know, I didn't panic, and I tried to keep moving. I just stopped and looked at them. And I was really trying to get in their brains and understand why they are laughing. And that was even funnier for them, because they were laughing because they noticed that I had no idea why they were laughing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really thankful that came in that way, because through the years of teaching, I see a lot of people that face that moment and they choose to close,
Mm-hmm.
not to open.
Okay.
So that's
Interesting.
maybe.
But did you find out why they were laughing? Like now you know why they're laughing, what you're doing. You know now the techniques that you use them, and you see when they laugh, and you know, okay, I use that and it's working.
Of course, sometimes I hope that I can keep that ignorance running for many years. But of course, as you grow up and you learn skills and you develop tools and stuff like that, well, you have a bag full of tricks, of techniques, of knowledge where you can use.
Yeah.
So my director from the university used to say, like, you learn the technique so you can break it, right? That's one thing. But first you learn the technique. Then the technique is there when the inspiration is not there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you learn the technique. So if you are inspired, things will flow and you will use the technique, but you don't know that you're using it. It's just there. But if you're not inspired, you have the technique, right? And the tricks and all those things. I think that's one of the things that make a difference between an amateur and a professional.
Yeah.
The amateur, when the inspiration is not there, sometimes gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the show, I don't know, it was a very bad show. I don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
A professional improviser after the show might feel the same. That was a very bad show. But you know exactly what happened. And probably because you used the technique, for the audience, it was an okay show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of techniques as well, because I think there are techniques. Sometimes they're maybe not they're not having names, but they are, and it's good to know them. And I would like to talk to you about the projects you do, because you do a lot of circus, and you are artistic director to circus, or I don't know how to call the company's circus, doing circus shows,
La
right?
Gata.
Like,
La Gata is the name of the circus company that I run here.
what does that mean?
The cat, the female cat.
Oh yeah, It's like Italian. I wasn't sure, and I don't know Spanish, so I wasn't sure. So what is your company doing? And I found out by watching some of the clips that uh, in my mind, like in my European mind, when we think, the first thing we think circus is, you know, animals, acrobatics, clown. So I would say that this is like the combination of these three. But like Cirque du Soleil is completely very different thing, which is a lot of acrobatics and art and music and lights and so on and so on, which is very different show, which we historically would say about circus. And when I watched your things, to me there is like huge impact of storytelling in it. That's what you said, like you were looking for it and I think you found it.
Mhm.
Is that true?
Well, I guess that's how impro has impacted my circus life,
Mm-hmm.
because also when I started doing circus, there was no circus here. Like, no, this is like, okay, you have like contemporary, like traditional circus,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have this new circus or contemporary circus wave that started in France, then Canada, then Cirque du Soleil is like the most big referent of the new contemporary circus.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, like a lot of examples of that. And France is very big in neo circus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we started doing that. As I told you, like, I don't need to decide this is what I'm doing. This is where everything gets together.
Mm-hmm.
Theater, dance, even martial arts, even impro, all they will mix together in this new concept of the contemporary circus.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that I started the company with, uh, like Luisa, my partner, we started the group together, and she's an anthropologist.
Mm-hmm.
She met in we met in the university, and she's a dancer. She came from the dance side.
Mm-hmm.
So we met, and we were with other friends, like coming from different things. Like, we all loved movement, we all loved things, and we started doing juggling and fire and aerial stuff, and those things also came in the same way. Like, we developed a lot of that because there was no circus school here.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, like, yeah, I need to be an acrobat. So I went to the gymnastics league to learn. And I loved capoeira, and that had a lot of acrobatics. So I did like 6 years of capoeira.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started mixing that. And because I was in impro, like, it was always like, yeah, let's try to tell a story. At the beginning, we were thinking like let's do a very physical theater, very acrobatic theater, or let's do dance but with a very theatrical approach
Mm-hmm.
and some acrobatics. And how about if we can tell stories with this? And then the circus came, and then it was, okay, this is what we are doing, trying to tell stories with some movement, acrobatics, juggling, impro, whatever. And then that started developing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we put our first show together in 2006. It was a huge success here because nobody was doing that, and we put together all those things.
Mm-hmm.
We started doing little acts, little shows for companies, for gigs, like we started for raves. So we started earning money with that, and it was like, wow, we can earn money with this. And then as I told you, everything became like a snowball, and then today we have like 3 branches in that company. We have like our own shows. We have the school where we teach like circus and physical theater. Mm-hmm. And we have a show design for corporate staff and special events. Mm-hmm. So in that area, we have done very small things, but we also have done like very big things. We did the closing ceremony show for the FIFA World Cup under 20 here in Bogota. Mm-hmm. We did the opening ceremony for the World Games in Cali, mm-hmm. which are shows with 600 artists for a football stadium, you know, like this. Right. So yes, I really love that. So I do shows like for a stadium, but I love to do my solo show and stuff like that.
So where did you learn about storytelling and how that influenced improv, and if storytelling is important in improv?
Actually, I have to say that I learned storytelling from improv. Mm-hmm.
But yes, from observing or from teachers, or somebody taught you, or like from books, or what was the...
Yes, at the beginning from watching these groups that I told you, like I was traveling, I met some groups, I saw what they do, and I was like, wow, how are they able to tell such strong stories? Mm-hmm. So sometimes I took workshops with people around, and then I was asking like, where can I find information? Mm-hmm. Because I didn't have a lot of chance to travel to learn, you know, like some people were saying like, no, go and take the 14 days with kids and go and take these other workshops. But for us, the money exchange and all these things is very strong sometimes. So in that time of my life, I was like, I can't. Mm-hmm. I can't afford to go and learn there, but I need to learn. So I will read books. I will analyze movies, reading, mm-hmm. literature, trying to understand stories and how they work and what work. But a lot from doing it, mm-hmm. you know, like a lot from doing it.
So tell me one thing, because I saw your shows and I saw you improvising, and I see how big storytelling is in your work, consciously or unconsciously, but is there, and I see it. And I think everyone who will see the show, especially like the Speechless show, which is now online, and if I'm allowed, I will put it down there on the YouTube in the description, that people can also see it. I have a question about it, because there are 2 schools. One says that if you want to tell the story and you think about the story during improvising, this takes you in head. So you are in head thinking of the next movement, not being present and not improvising well. But in the same time, as you said, it is possible to do a story, and it is possible to use storytelling tools to tell the story while we're doing it, so while we improvise. So how you do it? Is it taking you to the head? What kind of thing you use, or kind of techniques that you do storytelling during the improvisation? And if it takes you to the head or not, I don't know.
I think I believe in training in the same way as sports training. Mm-hmm. So, for example, basketball, you have to train a lot how to move the ball, to control the ball, how to throw the ball from different parts and aim, how to be able to move here, there, and get under people and throw, and you train that a lot. But once you're playing, you're not thinking of that.
Yeah.
That's how sports work, right? So that's my approach to improv as well. Like, by watching movies, by reading books, for example, I've been working on magical realism the past 5 years. So I directed an impro ensemble in the university that I teach here in Colombia with 20 students. So I took that chance and I said, like, we are going to do a magical realism format. But we need to dive and scratch and chew the genre. Yeah. So I used those 6 months with my students to really get deep, study the theory, try stuff, and we build a show. And since then, I've been working on magical realism. So that from one side, like, I think you need to train a lot to understand how stories work, to understand the different ways of telling a story, the different structures, the different genres, all this first. So you can train that, and that's a very rational activity, right? But then in the impro side, I don't know if you remember that concept that I work or that I love to mention in my workshops, that it's something like deep listening, that it comes a lot from the kinesthetic response, and to listen not just with your ears but with the whole body, and trust your impulses and hear with your back, with your skin. And connecting those two things, what I do is that I try to see the stories unfold as I walk through them. In a way, you can say it like Michelangelo, like the sculpture is already there, you just have to take the things away. So I think the stories are there already. So you have to just connect with them and let them unfold in front of you.
So if I would ask you, what story has to have, whatever it is, one thing or 10 or 20, what every story has to have to be a story?
A story has to have like strong characters, and like a very solid platform, like something that it doesn't matter the way you tell the story, but a structure has to have like strong characters in a strong platform. So that means like you need to know who they are, why they are there, what they are doing, where are they. And then you have to see a nice change, a transformation of the characters through the story. That's why we want to see a story, because we want to see people changing, and we connect with that.
Thank you. Going from that, let's go to Speechless, because it's a great project. And to those who don't know that, this is a 3-person show where you and Daniel Orantia, you improvise a show, which is silent show, and you have also a girl DJ who is playing music and making a background to that story? What is her name? Can you remind me?
Sarah Michelson.
Okay, so three of you are doing a silent, or let's say no words, or yeah, no talking show, because there can be word or can be sound, but it's not like a dialogue in the show. What brought you to this? Tell me about your, maybe just few words about your friendship with Danielle, and how did you start? How did you have this idea for that show?
I had like when I was working with Beto, with my other partner, we will do like shows where we mix genres, right? So we will have like a soap opera, action movie, and silent movie. Because we, as I told you, we loved this physical comedy, and since that time I was really, really, really connected to using no words. Also because the same thing I told you before, sometimes during scenes when you don't understand the English very well, you have to rely on your physicality. So I started like discovering that through the years. Then I met Daniel. He was part of my impro group, the other impro group, and then that group was dissolved. And then we were thinking with Daniel, let's build something, let's keep doing stuff. So we started a new project called Picnic here in Colombia. That's my current company here. And we started also because he was part of the other group. We were working a lot of that kind of silent movie style. And then one day we went to a festival in Edmonton, Improvaganza, with the Rapid Fire people. And we had met Sarah before in Würzburg in Germany. And we made like a really cool connection because we are very aware of everything, as I've been saying, you know, like it's not just the improvisers. No, it's the music, it's the people, it's the lights. So we found in Sarah in Würzburg that she was a special musician because first, she's a DJ. So she's very fast and she has an amazing skill as a DJ. And second, she was really able to connect with the improvisers in a very deep level. So we felt that and we made like good connection with her. And then we met again in Edmonton. And I remember that we had a theater sports show with a Canadian group, and these guys had guitars, and they said like, we want to challenge you to something involving music. We are going to sing. I don't know if you have something like that. And we were like, no, we have no idea. And Sarah was doing the music for that show. So we talked to Sarah, and then we said like, Sarah, let's do something very strong with music. We will say that you will start and we will follow you, and we'll see. And that scene was an amazing scene. It was like the story of a pianist, and we used words, very few words, but it was a very strong connection with the music, with what we were doing. And that night we went to have some beers at a bar, and we were talking about how cool was it, and you know, like throwing ideas. And then we say like, oh, I loved our silent scenes as well, because we have done ones here and there in festivals. And then just throwing ideas, and then we just said like, oh, it would be very cool to do like the ultimate thing, the most challenging thing, a long form without words with a DJ. So we were there, and it was like, wow, that can be wonderful. That's an amazing idea. We would love to do that. And then we realized, like, hey, wait, we are in July, but in October, the three of us are going to be in Würzburg. I can talk to Nadine and tell her that the three of us are willing to do a long form without words, and I know Nadine will help us. Mm-hmm. And then we were like, oh, should we? And how are we going to rehearse and everything? And we don't care, let's do it. So, because also Sarah lives in Canada, and Daniel and me, we live here in Bogota. So, and then I remember like the next day or something like that, I wrote to Nadine, and she said like, yes, sure. So she opened the spot, and then the three of us were like, oh man, now what? Now we have a big trouble here. So we started finding ways of inspiring each other, and Daniel and me training a lot here, rehearsing, telling Sarah what we have found, and watching movies and reading stuff together. And then we did our first speechless show there in Würzburg, and that was amazing. It was a very cool show. Audience loved it. It was very new, very unique in that time, because nobody had done that in that way. And again, a snowball. After that, we played that show for 5 years, like very strong. Like we were doing tours all around the world with that show. And we are still playing it. We're not touring with it anymore, because we've been to a lot of places, and like it's difficult to connect like a long tour now. But still, we have an invitation in the end of the year. I don't know if it's going to happen because all this thing, but we were planning to do that. I hope it still works. So we still have our little jewel together, the three of us. Mm-hmm. And we loved to play that show. And I think that show really brought a very nice, fresh wave to improv in the world. I can say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not that we were the first doing silent scenes, like, of course that existed before, but I think the way we put that show together, the way we mixed music, silent, and not being a silent movie style, but just a very strong storytelling show without words, was a very inspiring thing.
Yeah, I think also that's very special. And I see also a lot of magical realism in that, which is also a part which is not very obvious and not very used widely, let's say like that. I can see it sometimes from time to time, but for sure your show is really special in that case. I will go to this in a second, but just wanted to ask you before we go to magical realism, did you ever play a solo show? Like improv solo show?
No, I never was inspired by doing a solo show. Mm-hmm. I have 2 solo clown shows. Mm-hmm. Actually, I did the premiere of my last one at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. It's directed by Rama Nicholas. Mm-hmm. And it's a great show. But impro, no. But during this pandemic, I have now like a very cool idea, and I have a chance to do it the first time in the middle of August, but I'm not sure if I will do it like this or not. But now I have a strong idea and I want to try it.
Great. I'm asking because as a clown, you probably experience that, like being alone on the stage and doing your own thing. So you're not like afraid of being on your own on the stage. That's the first thing. And of course, improvising is a bit different. It's not written, directed, or whatever. But I was just curious if this is something tickling you because you are very close to that. So it looks like it may happen.
Now, yes, but as I told you, like I've never been inspired. Like I think impro, it's to be done in teams. I don't know. It's just my feeling.
Yeah.
And actually, my show is not. It's going to be a very interactive show. I hope with audience and not just me on stage doing stuff because yeah, I want, I need that connection and make people do stuff and play with me and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Again, something what I didn't know. Felipe, so tell me what's French, what's magical realism? Where where did you learn that, or is this something? Because I know that Omar is doing this strongly, and especially last years, and he also developed some shows. How did you get inspired when all this thing comes from, and what is it?
Well, magical realism is a literary genre,
Mm-hmm.
very strong in Latin American writers, and yeah, that's like the definition. Uh, it's something where magic happens in daily life, but it's taken as daily life and not as something extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. So.
Um, so I got connected with it because I live in a magical realism world. Like Colombia is a magical realism country, you know, in many senses. So I grew up with a lot of superstition close to me, and not like it was the core of life,
Mm-hmm.
but the spice of life, you know, like little details in daily life, in my family, in the countryside, in the stories that you hear from the farmers. If you go to the coast in Colombia, you will hear stories, and then you go like, I really don't know if this is real, but I trust, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with that. Not with the genre, but with the spirit of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you will hear stuff like my sister, for example, she was growing and she was saying that she sees ghosts, and I lived all the things that she had to deal with before she was able to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that became something very normal, you know, like it's my sister. And at the beginning, it was weird. And when I told my friends in the school, like, no, my sister, and then they were like, what? And I was like, okay, this is not that normal. And then you will hear stories from the countryside that sometimes horses will, in the morning, you will find horses with breeds and stuff, and they will say that there were witches doing this in the hair of the horses
Mm-hmm.
during the night. And So it's always been like, wow, this is a magical world in our world, and why aren't we connected with it? And then I started reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez and some Latin American writers, and then I started getting like, wow, this is amazing. And I realized that in the way I do improv, that comes sometimes. And then I was like, oh, I want to do a show that is really focused on magical realism. So I started working with my students. I got that chance, and that was the perfect chance. We worked a bit with Picnic, with my company as well. We started the research there, but then once I had this group of students, 6 months, I was like, this is the chance. So that's where I really dived into it. And yeah, I guess if you see in general Latin American improvisers, we all have spice of that, because this is what we are and what we live in our daily life.
Mm-hmm. So all the elements you use, a photo on the wall, whatever, and all these things which you developed are inspired, you learned on your own again, like you just were trying to see what works or what not, or you learned from somebody else?
Of course, you're always inspired by different things, right? By movies, by theater directors, by paintings, writers. But then in the daily life, at the beginning, we started doing all those things just because we were playful. And we were allowing everything to happen, like going backwards. Okay, let's move this scene backwards. Why not? You are a frame, you're a painting. Okay, you are there. Why not? Oh, now it's talking. Okay, why not? All these things, like playing with this, finding ways to make special effects, but with this.
Yeah, what we have, right? So we don't have props, so we have our hands and ourselves.
Exactly. And then you discover that some of these things are techniques from that people have developed, and then you go like, wow, this is amazing. And then you see groups that have been working and developing this into a theater play. And then you see, and then you go like, wow, I haven't thought about that before. That's a very cool trick. So then you start being inspired by things and grabbing things from here and there, and yeah. But at the beginning, everything came just for being playful and being an idiot and allowing yourself to be an idiot.
Yeah. How you find this in the whole world of improvisation, because it's pretty original. So when you travel with this kind of shows or you teach them, people find it like very new and really interesting.
I don't think they do nowadays as strong as it used to happen. But for example, I can see some very strong influence of that early days in some of the groups that we grew together in the world scene. So places where we went when we were in these early stages, and we connect with some groups like really cool friends, and we worked, and then we traveled again and we worked together, and I can see how people have been influenced by some of this, which I love. And of course, when we do speechless, people go like, wow, what is this? You know, like, and I really would love to keep this, or not to keep. I feel I came with this style. I dived into the other type of improv.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot of storytelling. I learned a lot of character work and politics and how to play with that, different formats, blah, blah, blah. But now for me, I'm feeling that I really want to get back to my roots, to what I used to do. That was something completely maybe surrealist, or so how to go back there with all the knowledge that I have now from the other things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious about that, and I think that's my next step in improv.
Mm. So you would like to make like another project and develop that, or just check surrealism?
I don't know, maybe I think is maybe something very personal, like I want to go back there,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what that means. So
We'll see.
maybe we'll see. Maybe it will develop in a format or in a project with people from different parts of the world, or maybe is this solo that I'm working on. You know, like maybe all that is going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it's just a new state of me when I improvise with normal formats, or
Mm-hmm.
just a new state. I don't know. I have no idea. That's just my impulse.
This is Latino, let's say Latino improv, which is physical, based on clowning. How how would how much you find this when you travel all over the world? Because I guess like you have it in Bogota, so you are building this community. So I guess there's this strongly root of your work. But if you come to Europe for the festivals or teaching, do you find like this part of this physical work is like and shows is big or small, or it's growing? How do you see it?
um, I think it's been growing, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Especially like in places like France or Italy, I've seen some of this way of doing stuff
Mm-hmm.
developing a bit in the past 5 years, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, but I guess it's a matter of styles of what you like as an improviser. It's I I always come to sports because I love sports, but it's like, yes, you like to play basketball because you like active and contact sports, or you prefer badminton, that you're in your space, you don't have to deal with people, and you do your stuff in a way, right?
Yeah, but also it's about inspiration, because if you have no access, you haven't seen, like you said, seeing this first time, it's like wow. So also it inspires. So I guess that the influence you and other people who did this kind of style of improv brought this to Europe and then brought to festivals. That this is also inspiring for other people, and that's also why it's growing, because more people get to know about it. But that's why I'm interested if you see this grow, and that the inspiration is spreading all over the world now.
Yeah, I think so. And also, like, like, I don't feel it's just because of us. Uh, I think we were a strong influence and a strong inspiration, yes. But you know that sometimes when you start doing something and you think like, wow, this is a great idea, some people are doing the same in other parts of the world, and or when you research, you find that some people have done that before many years ago. So I think that it's true that it's been growing, as impro has been growing crazily the last 15 years.
Sure.
And then of course you will, as it grows, you have more variety, and you have people that are like, no, I'm a dramatic improviser, I will focus on this, and then you see amazing work in drama, impro. We have a very close group of friends in Mexico. They are all actors, and they come from acting school, and their background is acting, and they have wonderful formats with very strong characters, very strong storytelling, plus this more physical way of doing improv. So you see a lot of variety, and we also were able to travel to Mexico, Chile, Brazil, in with Speechless, and with our early work with Beto as well, and that also became an influence that you can see, and you talk to them and they go like, yeah, I remember when I saw you the first time, I realized that we could use miming in another way, or that interacting with objects and spaces was a cool thing, or that we were inspired by that.
Great. Yeah, I felt inspired many times while watching you improvising and teaching. So I would advise everyone to book your workshop, to bring you to the country, or just go somewhere where you teach and try all of that. So yeah, so this summarized in the end something what I wanted to ask you almost at the end, if the Northern American and European improv is different than South American, but you already said that it is a bit different, and this influence is visible. When I read something of things you did, and you mentioned, what's the object manipulation? Is there something you mentioned? What's that?
It comes from juggling. And let's say jugglers started playing with basic stuff, basic juggling props, like balls, clubs, rings, cigar boxes. But now you can see a lot of exploration with non-traditional props. There's a lot of people finding stuff to do with a cup, with a chair, with a coat, with an umbrella, like old style circus or variety shows. They used to play with umbrellas, cigars. So the evolution of that is that we see people playing with crazy stuff that you wouldn't expect them to juggle with.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Thank you for the explanation. My friend, this is the end. Let's summarize maybe with one or two sentences why you love improvisation.
Why I love? Because I think it's something very, very pure, in the sense that you are present. For me, when it happens, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it's kind of, if you connect it to meditation, like when you do improv, sometimes you really get to this point where you're really present in the moment. Mm, I love the connection with the audience. I love this unique moment happening in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to connect with people. So even like improvisers or audience,
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Mm.
Wow, thank you so much. That was such a lovely, interesting, and great talk. And I'm so happy that we had a chance to chat. And I will, if I can, post the link with Speechless and all the links to connect with you. So thank you so much. And that was a great time.
Thank you for inviting me, and I really enjoyed it as well.
Thank you so much. And Felipe, would you like to play a scene together?
Yes, let's do something.
Let's do something. Great. So,
Okay.
we have a blank paper.
So we are starting drawing something here.
Yeah.
So the story starts because Linda was a woman that was born in a very small town. It was like 5 hours away from the main city,
Mm-hmm.
and 5 hours by car. But so if she needed to go somehow, she used to take the bicycle and then leave the bicycle in another place and then take the car there. Where she lived, it was a very beautiful place. It was a lot of plain grass. The sun will shine every morning and will leave uh, like a very nostalgic atmosphere in
Mm-hmm.
the mornings. And the sunset was beautiful, and she loved to go uh, in the sunset to the top of a hill to see the sunset there. So that was Linda. And she had a lot of friends in that town. And her best friend was uh, Antonio. Antonio was her best friend. He lived in the same town, but a little bit on top of the hill.
So, from time to time, Linda, on the way to Antonio, uh, she stopped under the tree because sometimes they decided to meet in the middle, the way where they lived, in the middle of between their houses. There was a huge oak tree which was over 100 years old, and they met there every Saturday because the tree was magical. And in this magical tree, there was a hole, and they could enter there and go to the very, very, very different world. So one day, they decided that before the dinner, Linda and Antonio will have a new adventure and see what's happening, what's new happening in the tree. So they went on Saturday and they
entered the hall, and it was like a door, and then it was very dark, and they were holding hands, and they moved through that cave, and once they got out, they found this beautiful flower in front of them. It was beautiful. It was moving with the wind. It was a place that they both knew from their dreams, because they have dreamed about this same place many times, and finally they were there, as if they were meant to be there. So they both started trying to look what else they see there, and why they were why they were there. And he picked the floor and put the floor in Linda's ear, and they started walking, and in front of them they saw a woman with a white dress waiting for them, and she said, "Welcome, I was waiting for you."
they heard from her that she prepared a huge adventure for them and that they should walk the way she told them. And it started with the entrance, which was like a beautifully made gate. And she said that walking through that gate and the walk will be pretty long. So she prepared food for them. She had like fruits and a big bottle of water. She gave them some snacks, and she said that at the end of this road, they will find some very important for them message.
So they got there. At the end of that path, and they found a chair, just a bench full of flowers and everything. And suddenly they realized that what they were looking for was their own love. So she kissed him with the big lips, big red lips that Linda had. And then they knew that they were meant to be together. And in that moment, the woman in white appeared again and gave them the 2 rings. And she said, "Yes, this is how it is. Now you have the rings, you know who you are, and you were meant to be together." So in the next day, they met each other again. They came back, they went to their homes, and they were completely sure that what happened was real, and then they both have to be together. So they arranged everything and told everyone in their families that they were going to be married, and they arranged everything. And 1 month after it, they were in front of the church getting married.
So